Hello everyone, this is Dan, and today we've got a cooking video. As you can see, this is rice and gumbo. And I'm going to start off with some onions, peppers, and this is what they call the Holy Trinity. I'm going to start off with the onions. I'm going to slice off one side, and then I'm going to discard that. And then we're going to slice up the onion. I'm going to cut it in half, peel the onion, and then what I do is I do horizontal cuts first. I do a couple of them, especially if it's a big onion like this one. And then we're going to cut slits down the sides, and then I'm going to cut them across the way, make small little cubes. I like to keep them fairly small. I don't want them to be very large in the end product. I like to use as much as possible, so I just cut the little parts by the root. Once you have them all cut, you're going to put it into a bowl. It's going to be a fairly large bowl because we're going to put the peppers, which I like to take the tops off. That way when I twist it, it takes most of the seeds with it, and then I discard. And cut off the bottoms, and then I take the bottoms and I cut them into little strips. And with the little strips, I turn them over and then I dice them into little cubes. You're going to do that with both of them. So as you saw, I had one onion, large onion, and I have two green peppers. Most people are going to use green peppers. You can do what you want. It's your gumbo, not mine. I cut out the little stems on the inside. I don't like that in there. So I just cut them off of all the little pieces that come off from the main side. And then I take them all and cut them into manageable pieces. Again, cut into little strips. And then from these little strips, we're going to once again cut them into little diced cubes. And also again, I like to cut them a little smaller just so that they don't take too much of the soup. Now we've got some celery. I cut off the tops. I also cut off the bottoms. I don't like having those. I discard those. Then I don't want them to be too large also. As you notice, there's a theme here, so I'm going to cut them into smaller strips. And then from that, we're going to cut them into, once again, small dice. And put all of it together. As you can see, I've got a big bowl. I've got all of them in there. And for the meats, I'm going to go with a kielbasa. This is all beef kielbasa. This is what I like. Normally you use andouille, but this is easier to find in most supermarkets I've been to. I cut them into bite-sized pieces, something that fits on a spoon. I cut the end pieces off because they're a lot more weird. But otherwise, I take the longer parts and I cut them in half. And then I cut them into, once again, bite-sized pieces. You want to put this into a separate bowl. It's a meat bowl, not to be confused with the meatball. This is the garlic. I'm going to smash all the garlic cloves because I like to have a bit of garlic. You can put less if you want, but this is what I'm going to put. And I cut off all the little bottoms. I think that's the root end. And I dice them up. I cut them pretty small, and then I put them in with all the other veggies. This is the chicken. I'm using chicken thighs here just because they're fairly inexpensive. They come with a lot of fat, so I'm going to cut off pieces of that are just really large amounts of fat that just won't render out. I'm just going to cut them off. We got adobo here. We're going to season the chicken with the adobo. Adobo is delicious, so if you don't have it, you should get it. And I do some black pepper. And don't forget to do both sides. And then black pepper for both sides as well. And then we're going to heat a container full of oil, slosh it around, coat the bottom, and we're going to start our base here. And we're going to start off with our meat. We're gonna start off with the chicken. I'm gonna do the skin side down to render out a lot of fat. You're gonna need that fat for later in the cooking process. So that's one good reason to use a chicken thigh or a drumstick or whatever. If you use a chicken breast, you probably want to use some extra fat, or you could use some of the fat here with the kielbasa. I'm going to use all of the fat, so if you want to use less fat, that's on you, but if it's not as delicious, that's also on you. And you're just going to cook it. I'm going to flip these guys around. The skins are a lot browner, so you cook both sides and then you pull the chicken out. Don't worry, they're going to be undercooked, but we're going to cook them further in the process. And here we're done with the kielbasa. It's nice and browned, or at least as brown as I like it to be. And as you can see, there's a lot of fat that got rendered out. That's a good thing. That's a real good thing, especially for this, because what we're going to do is we're going to make a roux with this. I've got, I don't know, maybe a cup of oil in here, so I'm going to put about a cup of all-purpose flour right into the pot here, and we're going to stir it up, and this makes the roux. Most people just use oil or butter or whatever. I'm going to use the fat from the meat just because why not? It's already there. You're going to throw it out anyways, right? So once you get it nice and even and it's been cooked a little bit, I hope you had preheated your oven to 350 degrees because we're using the Alton Brown method, where what we're going to do is we're going to put the roux into the oven to cook it. And this way we cook it low and slow. Take it out every few 10 to 15 minutes, check on it, and just stir it every once in a while. It's going to get darker and darker every time that you do it, but that's what you want. It's going to cook slowly, so then you don't have to worry as much about it getting burnt. That's a big thing with making gumbo, is that it gets you get your roux burnt. So here it's been cooked quite a bit. It's really dark brownish red, almost like chocolate, and that's what you want. You want to get that. Here it is. As you can see, it almost looks like chocolate. So we're going to put it back on the stove. I've got the heat back on, and we're going to put our veggies in. Watch out, because this stuff is really hot and will burn you if you're not careful. So be careful. And then stir this around. And I also put the garlic back in once this is stirred up. Here we are. Forgot the garlic for a second. Be careful here because the pot was in the oven, so you'll want to use something to hold on to the pot with. Otherwise, you're going to burn your hands. Don't say I didn't tell you. All right, we're going to add some oregano. I'm going to put maybe a few tablespoons in. I've got some paprika. I like the smoked paprika because it substitutes for the andouille that would have given you a smoked taste. Here's some ground cayenne pepper. This will give it a little heat on the back. We've got some thyme. That's another couple of tablespoons. Everything's about a couple of tablespoons. I'm using chipotle here, just a little extra heat. I think that the different peppers hit differently, and black pepper. Got a couple of bay leaves that I'm going to put in. Remember how many you put in, that's going to be important later. And we're going to stir everything up. Once everything's softened, we're going to put the meat back in. Only the kielbasa though. We're going to start off with just the kielbasa. And we're going to stir that up. Make everything combined. Nice and combined. Once everything's been combined, I'm going to add our chicken broth. You could use a different thing, but I like using the chicken broth. It tends to be tastier in my opinion, and it's easier to get that unsalted. So you put as much as you are able to cover the top, because we're going to make it a little soupy, and that's going to be important because you want a little extra room in there. And everything's going to thicken up, so don't worry, as long as you get it to the top. As you can see here, everything's fairly submerged. That's what you want. You want to have enough to cover up to the top. And now we're putting our chicken in. We're gonna nestle them inside, and they should mostly be covered. It's fine if it doesn't cover it all the way. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna fully cook the chicken in the broth. And that's why I said you don't have to worry. And here we are with the chicken. It's been about, I'd say about 30 minutes. It's been simmering inside. Yeah, you want it to simmer like that. Bubbles popping up here and there. If it's a rolling boil, that's too high. And we're just gonna cover it and cook it for 30 minutes. If you leave the side open, it'll evaporate a little bit of the moisture. And I'm setting a timer for 30 minutes because I'm very forgetful. And after 30 minutes, we're taking the chicken out. They've been fully cooked, and we're going to shred them into pieces so that you don't have a whole giant piece of chicken in your broth. And if you stir it up and you can find your bay leaf, go ahead and please pick it out. I can't tell you how I don't like eating a soup, having a big chunk of bay leaf that I didn't notice was in there, taking a bite, yuck. With your chicken out, you're gonna take a couple of forks, not spoons, or you could use your hands and just pull the chicken. You want to take them out into little pieces, big enough to have a bite, but not so big that all you're eating is chicken. And once you're done, you should have quite a bit of chicken, and then put the chicken back in. Now it's been shredded and easier to eat. And then you're going to heat everything back up so that everything's nice and up to temperature. And you don't have to do this, but I like putting in some okra. It gives it a little extra substance. Most people don't like the texture, but hey, you do you. This is what I'm eating. This is what I want to make. If you don't want it, don't put it in. Easy as that. And then here we are. We take the final product, scoop it over rice, and you're pretty much done. And hopefully you like it. If you don't, well, this was not an authentic recipe to begin with. If you want something authentic, go to Louisiana. All right, have a good one.